Bijan Robinson is a polarizing prospect, but should he be? What teams make sense for him in the first round? Which ones don't? We're exploring all of that today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the NFL on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Joe, it's Monday, and it's been a while since we've done the thing, right? And routine listeners of Draft Dudes will recognize the concept of doing the thing as going through all the teams with one question specifically in mind. And not necessarily the teams in this scenario, but we're going to go through the first round. And we're going to ask ourselves the question with Bijan Robinson because there's a positional value debate that exists with drafting running backs early in the first round, and yet Bijan Robinson is the best running back prospect since
Saquon Barkley?
He's better than Saquon Barkley.
Okay. Ever. He's the best running back prospect.
I mean, I was gonna say Adrian Peterson.
Okay, all right, Adrian Peterson.
Yeah,
that was.
He's got better vision than he's got a lot better vision than Saquon Barkley.
I would agree.
Penn State.
Yeah.
So, uber talented, one of the best talents in this class. And the question is, okay, well, you have a best player available at one of the least valued positions in the NFL right now. Where is he going to go? And anytime an analyst sits down and tries to do the mock draft thing, right, you have to ask yourself the question of, where am I going to put Bijan? So that's kind of our objective of doing the thing with the first round and Bijan Robinson is to go through and identify the spots that we think should strongly consider / draft Bijan Robinson in the first round.
Great job setting the roadmap there. Two quick follow-ups on your roadmap. You started with "It's been a while," and I don't think I heard anything else after that because that song was every time. It's just I can't get that out of my head. So, yep. So there you go, a little singing here for you on a Monday.
Stained, a little Stained.
Is it Stained? I couldn't remember who it was.
Stained.
It a little bit sounds like Creed though too.
No,
I don't know.
don't.
Pop
culture references. Come on now. Don't do that.
I will go to bat for Creed. They got bangers. I don't care. Right, brother. It's good stuff. The other thing is, hey, you know that things are weird with Bijan Robinson because I feel like I load up mock drafts right now, and I studied a bunch of them over the weekend, and you see a lot of Bijan just kind of dumped in there to the Chiefs at the end, to the Eagles at the end, the Bengals sometimes, the Saints I've been seeing there, kind of like those last four picks, sometimes the Dallas, sometimes the Buffalo, right? That's how you know you got a top 3 player in the class. I don't care what you think about running backs. Bijan Robinson is to me a top 3 player in the class in terms of just pure talent, definitely a top 5. And this guy's just getting dumped in there in the back 4 or 5 picks. So let's do the thing here and figure out where, what teams make sense for him.
So just to set one thing straight about the positional value debate, what makes it hard, especially with this iteration of the collective bargaining agreement, is there's a rookie wage scale that is not position specific. The fifth year option is the only thing that's position specific, right? So the first pick has a predetermined amount of the rookie pool that their salary is going to be worth. And when you are, I have it here courtesy of Over the Cap, when you are the number 1 overall pick, your contract value is $40.5 million over the first 4 seasons. Healthy. Your year 1 cap hit is $7.3 million. Your year 4 cap hit, the last year of that rookie deal before the 5th year option, is just short of $13 million. If you're a running back in those shoes, the annual average of this contract is $10.1 million. That's more than the 2 guys are playing on the franchise tag right now, in Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. So that is the annual average salary of a running back going with the number 1 overall pick would be behind McCaffrey, Kamara, Cook, Henry, Chubb, Mixon, Aaron Jones. That is it. It's automatically the 8th most expensive running back contract in the NFL.
Regardless of where they're drafted in the first round or if they're drafted.
If they're drafted number 1 overall.
Okay, but that...
It scales down as you go, and that's going to be one of the things that I'm referencing when we're talking about certain spots and teams is,
cool.
Well, this is the contract value in this pick spot, courtesy of Over the Cap. So I'll shut up now. We'll do the thing. Carolina Panthers.
No.
Need a quarterback, right?
Right.
I went pretty cut and dry.
To get a quarterback, man. I don't tell you here.
The Houston Texans.
Paid Miles Sanders. No, you got Damian Pierce, Devin Singletary.
Just paid Devin Singletary. Yeah. A reasonable amount of money, too.
A little bit of cash over 1 year. Help the Bills with the compensatory pick formula. We appreciate that.
And the Arizona Cardinals.
Too many needs, right? We went through this
roster.
Yeah, was it last week at some point? This might be the worst roster in the league.
Yeah, it might not be the worst roster in the division, but it's might also be the worst roster in the NFL. So that tells you about the state of the NFC West right now in general.
Right, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's probably a value proposition where like this is probably the first spot where you eliminate the quarterback positional need, and you say, well, if you're just going to truly draft best player available, there's an argument to be made that Bijan Robinson is the best player available, but not with the lack of building blocks that this team has at essentially every premium position.
Arizona's got to be a trade-out team in my mind, right? To me, There's going to be QB3 is going to be on the board. You gotta dangle that. You got to entice somebody. You got to look at a team like Tennessee, potentially at 11 to come on up and get a quarterback. I'd be really interested in moving back if I was Arizona.
The Indianapolis Colts at number 4, Joe. I have to sneeze, so give me your thoughts on the Colts.
Yeah, the answer there, not only do you have glaring needs at other positions, you have Jonathan Taylor, who's one of the best young running backs in the NFL. So that's a no.
Thank you. I agree. The Seattle Seahawks at number 5.
Ken Walker, baby. No, you don't do this if you're Seattle.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker. If Seattle was devoid of a running back on a rookie contract that had the kind of season that Kenneth Walker had last year, I think you can make a very compelling argument with who Seattle has tried to be in years past and the DNA of that coaching staff and the ideology of the team. But yeah, not with Kenneth Walker on the roster as a second-year player.
They got to be excited about some of the D-line talent that they could be looking at right there at number 5.
Would you like an update on the rookie wage scale as we shift gears to number 6, which belongs to the Detroit Lions?
I would, because this is where the Bijan Robinson conversation starts to heat up in my mind.
The 4-year total value, according to Over the Cap for this contract, is $29.9 million across the first 4 seasons.
Okay, so he came down about $11 million, right?
Correct.
Pretty good. So Detroit's the team at 6, and they just gave David Montgomery a deal, right? That's kind of weird to remember that. In my mind, I don't associate David Montgomery with the Detroit Lions, right? But it's time to start programming that to be true.
Here's a fun fact for you. We said at the top, if he got drafted number 1 overall, he would be the 8th most expensive contract. Dropping to number 6, and now it's just short of $7.5 million per season. How many contracts have moved in front of him that would not have been in front of him at number 1?
So he's going to be making it's a 4-year, $30 million deal essentially.
Yeah, so it's 7.5 per.
7.5 per. I think a couple, right?
Only 3, and they're the 3 franchise tag running backs in Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard. Those are the only 3 that moved in front of him. So this is kind of the dead spots. Is still kind of the dead spot with running backs.
Yeah.
James Conner is next on the list with $7 million per.
I think for Detroit, at 6, I don't know that I like it as much as I would at 18.
Of course. The golden question is, will he be there at 18?
Which we'll uncover probably here as we move along. I think a player like Bijan Robinson is so much of what Detroit wants to be on offense. I think a back like him to go with the creativity of an offensive coordinator like a Ben Johnson, the offensive line that they have, the weapons that they have at receiver, I think you can really present some real challenges to defenses in what you're going to try to take away. Because if you try to take away the run, you've got Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You try to take away the run, you've got, or excuse me, try to take away the pass, then you got Bijan, who's going to feast on light boxes.
5 best offensive lines in football.
Yeah. So
a bunch of maulers up front and Bijan running behind it.
It's intriguing to me, and I'm not a huge David Montgomery guy, not going to lie. So that doesn't really move me off. I'm not really high on DeAndre Swift. There's certainly some huge durability questions there, getting towards the end of his contract. I'm interested, but a lot more interested at 18.
So if I'm Detroit, I'm willing to take the gamble, right? Because of the replaceability of production at the position.
Yeah.
But I, too, am nowhere near a David Montgomery fan or a DeAndre Swift fan at this point.
Yeah.
And DeAndre Swift's in the last year of his rookie contract. So there's a very obvious transition that could happen there. We'll see how many other potential landing spots we nail down between Detroit at 6 and Detroit at 18. But we got a couple spots here left to finish out the top 10. Vegas, 7, not with Jacobs on the tag.
No. And, of course, a lot of needs there.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. The trenches on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Falcons at 8.
Let you go first on this one.
I would strongly consider it. I understand why you wouldn't. You have a young player in Tyler Algier who's a heavy-hitting back, and Cordarrelle Patterson, who's been a nice mismatch type of player and has found resurgence in his career playing for Arthur Smith. I just wouldn't let Tyler Algier be the reason I don't draft perhaps the best running back of prospect of the last 15 years. And people say generational talents, and we all roll our eyes, but as far as running backs go, this is the best in 15 years, which probably qualifies as generational. I'm not going to sit here and pound the table for Atlanta to do it because they are an incomplete roster. I really like some of the stuff that they've added on the defensive side of the ball. I'd like for their offense to get more playmakers with the ball in their hands when you consider they went out and got Jonnu Smith as a rat guy. They have Kyle Pitts. They have Drake London. Continue to get more dynamic. The question is the opportunity cost for Bijan Robinson versus potentially a back on day 2. I can see why this team has enough needs seeded throughout the rest of the roster where you wouldn't go Bijan Robinson at 8.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. I also look at it through the lens of, can Bijan Robinson be a stabilizing presence if Desmond Ritter's my quarterback, to be able to lean on him? I'd love that. Do I think that Bijan Robinson helps me win the NFC South next year?
Yes.
Obviously because he's a good player, but because of him on your team and how it can allow you to play football in a wide open division, right? Being able to have that to lean on, I think, is huge. And we certainly know Arthur Smith can maximize them. A really nice offensive line there for the most part, how that's come together. It's intriguing to me. I wish I felt better about their edge rush situation.
Right.
And, of course, the edge rushers that we think could be there at 7 or, 8, excuse me. So it's interesting to me, but I'm not a firm in on that.
Chicago at 10, trading back out of 1.
Chicago at 9.
Chicago at 9, excuse me. They didn't trade back to draft a running back at 9.
No, they didn't. And they signed Deonta Foreman. They have Khalil Herbert. I mean, that doesn't move me off of Bijan for sure. If they move back again, but I think the thing about Chicago is they're in a really good spot to potentially get the first offensive line.
Top tackle or pass rusher. I mean, we talked about how unserious that defensive line was. So Bijan at this juncture will probably be a better prospect. But again, it's like going all the way up to Arizona at 3. Yeah. The needs that you have elsewhere at essential positions are so dire, I couldn't justify it if I was Chicago.
We talk about best prospect available, and I believe in that for sure. But I also look at it through the lens of, this is my pick, right? I own the 10th pick in the draft. And your objective to me as a general manager is to use that pick as wisely as you possibly can to improve your football team in the best possible way, right? And maybe that's not always the best player available. So I think you do have to foil both ideologies together.
Joe?
Yes?
We have a very interesting team at 10 that I would prefer not to rush, so why don't we tell everybody about our friends over at Ultimate Football GM?
Yeah, hey, look, if you like team building, you probably do. You're listening to this podcast, and you got to check out Ultimate Football GM. We've talked about this quite a bit. If you think you'd be a good GM, you got to give this a try. When you play Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and try to build a dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for hiring coaches, managing the finances, negotiating player salaries and terms. You got to deal with free agency, the draft, personnel issues, all the ups and downs of a season in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free, playable offline, play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On NFL Scouting listeners, listen up. You get a 100% free boost to your franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. That's Locked On, so make sure to check it out today. Again, to download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM, start your dynasty today.
Philadelphia Eagles at 10. I have a feeling we're going to agree here and going to make some people pretty angry.
Well, I mean, we've teased at this about 1 million times that we know Howie would never pick a running back this high, but
right.
Man, oh man, would this be a great player to really elevate what's already a strong offensive situation, especially with Jalen Hurts. And, you know, I'm sure that the contract will look different very soon, but to me, it's very digestible.
I mean, you got done. Everything that you said with Detroit is even more relevant for Philadelphia.
Mm.
When you really boil it down, the DNA of Detroit is they got creativity, they're aggressive, they invest a lot in their offensive line. They now have some promising weapons on the outside. Philadelphia has better weapons on the outside. They have a more dynamic quarterback. They have just as good or better of an offensive line, and they are equally creative and aggressive offensively.
Here's what Eagles fans are going to tell you. They're going to say, we got to the Super Bowl with Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell just sharing the backfield.
That's great. And when you needed to run the ball in the second half, how'd that go?
Woo! Kyle coming in right over.
Show me the lie.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Right? Because you played the game in the second half where you couldn't sustain. Kansas City found a little edge, and understand some of this has to do with the cleats and the footing on the field, and it gets all relevant, right? But Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, and I'm number one Rashad Penny truther. I think you guys got an incredible running back on a one-year deal for an absolute steal on the free agent market. But the fact that Philadelphia was able to run back a number of position groups defensively where we were not expecting the Eagles to be able to run it back, most specifically the cornerback position, it just makes it even more open and shut for me. Joe, you posed the question, name one player that gives Philadelphia a better chance to win in 2023 with that pick at 10 than Bijan Robinson. I can't find one. And the stress that can then in turn help continue to take off of Jalen Hurts as being so prominent as a runner. You want to be able to pick and choose your spots there. You don't want to run him into the ground. He got a shoulder injury late in the regular season. Go for the superstar. Go for the super team supporting cast. Please do it. And yeah, I get it. You can draft somebody later on and get an impact or dynamic player and get a trench player for economically cheaper. But at this spot at 10, this contract is $22 million across the first 4 seasons.
It's getting pretty digestible.
I mean, it's five and a half.
Right. You don't blink at that.
5.5 has now fallen behind James Conner, Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler, David Montgomery, Kareem Hunt.
Now you understand why Austin Eckler would
Right.
get a new contract. My guy scored 20 touchdowns a year for the last 2 years, right?
So you could sit here and just boil down the argument and say, well, Philadelphia, you're saving about $1 million per season versus what Miles Sanders got, the running back that you had, and you're upgrading from Miles Sanders to Bijan Robinson.
Right. And that's kind of like the type of team you want to be. Yeah,
Do it.
I hear you. Well, and we went through the NFC biggest questions last week or so, and I think you had linebacker written down here, and I had safety.
2 other devalued positions that you're going to be able to find no problem.
Right. You're not picking Drew Sanders or Jack Campbell here.
Or Brian Branch isn't going at 10. All 3 of those names might be on the board at 30.
Be a good chance of it. I'd say 2 of them for sure.
Done.
Yeah.
Titans.
No. Unless you just want to sign up for what you've been and try to do it better. I don't know, man.
Get $7 million cheaper at running back and have another player capable of being what Derrick Henry was for your offense the last
that actually
years.
Sounds pretty good, but you got so many other issues, man.
Correct. I think the deterioration of the roster over the last 3 seasons has not put them in a position to
maximize Bijan.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. People are going to get mad at me for saying this, but it's like what Najee Harris has been through his first 2 seasons for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Ooh, no, I think that's a great way to put it.
Have you seen the rushing yards under expectation?
Yeah.
From that class?
Yes.
He is dead last he's 500 yards under expectation.
Yep. That's a heck of a parallel. And we're not putting Harris and Robinson in the same stratosphere as prospect, but the maximization of a first round running back. Yeah, I think
you got to have the resources around him. Otherwise, you're going to waste half of the window in which he's the most valuable to your team because he's on a rookie deal.
Right.
Texans at 12.
No.
Hard pass again for all the dynamics we included at pick 2. Jets at 13.
Did you see they're rumored for some back. Is it Ezekiel Elliott?
Yes.
Did you see the tweet out there from it was Breece Hall? He tagged Michael Carter as we good. We got this. We're all right.
Like that. I like that room.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple nice complimentary players.
They just brought somebody else back too. Was it the third back? They just re-signed.
Ty Johnson. I don't know who.
Ty Johnson.
Yeah.
I think it is Ty Johnson. I mean, it's obviously a lot of that is predicated on knowing Breece Hall's recovery is going to go smoothly, which we're operating in the assumption that it is. But if it is, then yeah, I think Breece is. That's actually pretty interesting. I don't think we've talked about that. Part of the reason why Breece Hall made so much sense and was so exciting was because of his fit.
Oh, yeah. It's a different system now.
Yes. I don't think that changes the 13th pick for the Jets.
No, but
we
have a very small sample size, too.
There's probably a pretty interesting conversation. Maybe that's another show. I want to do another show within the show, especially since we're 22 minutes in on this show. And we're at 13.
Yikes. Okay, let's go.
Some of them will pick up here. New England at 14, the answer is no.
No.
You have Ramondre Stevenson, period.
Yeah.
Is there a team more invested in the running back position than the Green Bay Packers right now?
Nope,
15.
we're good.
Yep, we're going to move on. The Commanders at 16.
Brian Robinson doesn't move me off of Bijan Robinson, but I just feel like they can help themselves in so many different ways that they should consider.
Yeah, we've got a need at corner here. Heaven forbid one of the quarterbacks falls. Sam Howell's not stopping me from drafting one of the top 4 quarterbacks.
Right, Will Levis is there at 16. Yeah,
right.
We'll do that.
And
we'll do that for
I get
sure.
it seems like they like Sam Howell a lot.
Man.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't stop me from swinging the bat on a more prominent player. The Pittsburgh Steelers at 17 just drafted Najee Harris. He's been their workhorse with 3.8 yards per carry the last 2 seasons as they've been figuring out the offensive line. So we're passing for Pittsburgh, correct?
Yep.
Detroit at 18?
Already had the conversation at 18. Yeah, I mean, if he's on the board, I'd love it. I'd love it for Detroit.
Tampa Bay at 19.
It's interesting, right? Rashad White's their guy now. Lenny no longer around.
Laid off Lenny.
Ooh. Did you just come up with that?
Yeah, is that good?
Yeah. Lombardi Lenny, playoff Lenny, laid off Lenny.
We need a tackle here. Like, come on.
We do?
We just got done saying 5 of their 6 offensive tackles are arguably non-NFL roster caliber players.
Right. I agree. It's kind of like it's in that Cardinals conversation for me.
To a lesser extreme.
Yeah, like I hear you. I think he'd be a great upgrade for them. He'd really help them. I'd like him as a foundational piece of their build moving forward. But you gotta have something at left tackle.
Right. So I guess here's where you're building the. If Tampa Bay drafted him and they just came straight out and said we just took the best player available on the board, like you're not going to be mad at it, right?
No.
You totally understand it.
Yeah.
Last team before we have our moment of silence for the Dolphins forfeited pick at 21. The Seattle Seahawks are again on the clock at pick 20.
Yeah, we've already done Seattle.
Okay. So we're going to go 21 through 31 here after we enjoy a brief moment of silence for Tom Brady stealing the Dolphins pick and with his last victory over the Dolphins.
Well, Kyle, as the team that has the most wins over Tom Brady, it would only make sense. But can we do the thing if Miami was picking at 21, this is an absolute yes?
I do
not I didn't mean to put it that way, but honestly.
Yeah, go ahead. 5-yard penalty, legal hands to the face, Joe Marino. We're going to move on.
Wait, isn't that a bigger? It's an automatic first. I think it's a 10-yard penalty, right?
Is it a 10-yard penalty?
I think it's 10.
I'm not one of the refs. Yeah, I think the challenge for Miami would be the positional debate of would you have a more impactful player at one of the other premier positions of need, be that at offensive tackle, potentially like you might get tight end 1.
Yeah.
Is tight end more valuable in this offense than running back? But if it were me and I'm on the board and the Dolphins were picking in 21 and Bijan Robinson was on the board, it would be the easiest selection of my entire life.
Right, like I hear you on all of that, but right, it's still Bijan.
Yeah,
right?
It would still be Bijan for me, yes. Yeah. Chargers 21. Wouldn't hate it.
No, that was kind of my thought when I'm looking at the draft order, of course, and thinking about what we're going to talk about with the next team, and I'm like, I don't think I don't like this. A young offensive line. Eckler's awesome, but like it feels like I don't know how he's going to age. You could have Herbert and Bijan in your backfield for like with Bijan on a rookie deal for like the next 5 years.
You'd save $4 million against the cap too by trading Eckler and drafting Bijan in year 1.
I don't hate it.
The cap hit in year 4 is $4.7 million.
Like, you definitely have to look at this through the lens of we're going to trade Austin Eckler. And there you go.
So, I guess here's my question with the Chargers at 21. Is there a different kind of positional value debate that comes into play when your quarterback is a Justin Herbert, you're probably going to want to throw the ball 35 times a game type of player?
Bijan helps you in the passing game, and you still got to run it, right? There still has to be that.
Right.
Like, you're going to be up in football games late, probably. You need to be able to close it.
That's not my question. My question is from the point of view of the Chargers, if we have Justin Herbert, we're going to throw the ball 650 times a year. Is using that first round pick to help Justin on 60 of the pass attempts plus pass pro, right? Mm-hmm. And the running downs more valuable than drafting someone who can contribute on all of the passing downs?
Austin Eckler had 307 touches from scrimmage last year.
Yes.
The year before that, he had 276. There's a lot of chances for Bijan to touch the football in addition to pass pro. Okay. I hear you. I do. And that was
I'm just asking the question.
No, I thought about that a lot with the Christian McCaffrey stuff with Josh Allen. It's like, well, are we going to use this player enough to justify it? And do you want to, right? Do you want to have that
Feel like you have to go a different direction.
Feel like
that's
you have
not
to,
letting your top level quarterback
and that's
touch the ball.
just on you to do that, right? Like,
right.
You have to manage that appropriately as a team.
Baltimore Ravens.
Listen, let's.
You did the kombucha tea girl thing there.
I don't know what that means, but
when she drinks the tea and she goes, no. Well,
if let's say that you can't get Lamar back, and I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. And you got to roll with like Tyler Huntley as your starting quarterback, and J.K. Dobbins is like good but been hurt.
J.K. Dobbins was also like super pissed at you at the end of the year last year. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think this could be a nice stabilizing player for their direction here.
I think it's a stabilizing player whether you bring Lamar back or not.
Sure, that's a good point.
To be honest. So I get it. Like, Lamar's gotten hurt in the pocket as a passer, but every carry and every touch creates a workload. And in the same way that we were talking about with Philadelphia, if you can be more selective with those opportunities and really make them count, and have a player when your DNA has very clearly been, we are going to pound you with the ball, and we are going to play action off of that, and we're going to take shots down the field. It's a great opportunity, especially with the loss of Ben Powers, to make sure you're not taking a regression step back. It's an insurance policy against J.K. Dobbins in year one, or potentially you could trade J.K. Dobbins and get assets back. And then obviously, as you said, it's a reset of the position. So if I were Baltimore, I think I've done this in a mock or two throughout the course of the last 9 months. I would not be adverse to this at all. Vikings, 23.
No.
I agree. We need passing game help. We need cornerback help. Look, you got to remake the whole defense for Brian Flores.
And you're paying Cook and Madison. They brought back
right.
Madison.
They brought Madison back.
Yeah.
They still might get rid of Cook after June 1st.
Well, if that's true, I get interested.
Jacksonville, 24.
It doesn't move the needle for me. Travis Etienne had a nice season. He's a recent first-round running back, right? Like, you don't be the Bills and draft C.J. Spiller when you have Marshawn Lynch. You know what I mean? You don't want to do that.
As somebody who's lived that life, right?
Yeah. You don't need to take like 2 first-round running backs in the span of like 3 years. So yeah, don't do that.
Giants answer is absolutely not.
No. Yeah.
Dallas, 26.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, you have Pollard's a nice player.
Tony Pollard's a nice player who's on a franchise tag and coming off a season-ending injury, though, Joe.
So are you in on Dallas going for –
I would.
You would?
Yeah.
Really?
The Dallas offense has never mind the fact that Kellen Moore is out and now it's Mike McCarthy calling plays. Dak Prescott has always consistently been the best version of himself when you are the complementary component of the offense and you have running the ball as the DNA of who you are primarily. And I get you don't want to pay Dak Prescott to say, well, we need to have a greater emphasis on running the ball. I get that's not ideal, but like Dak is who he is.
Okay. All right. I'm warming up. There you go.
Welcome.
Warming up.
Welcome to the party.
And really, I didn't give enough consideration to Pollard coming off injury. And are you really going to pay him like a long-term contract?
Right. You're just now going to get out of the Zeke contract.
Yeah.
At least at 26, the full value of that deal, it's less than $14 million for the first 4 seasons.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm perked up.
Like, even if you bring Pollard back, you wouldn't bring him back on the Aaron Jones type deal. He'd have to be cheaper than that, but Pollard's never been that player before anyway. So I'm in. I'm in on Dallas. Buffalo, 27.
I mean, you have a really, really exciting talent in Bijan Robinson that could add a lot to your offense. I don't have a concern about the Bills with running back. They have James Cook, Nyheim Hines, Damian Harris. You feel good about that as a trio. I don't think that prevents you from Bijan. I mean, you just took James Cook in the second round last year. He wound up really evolving well throughout the course of the season. I think you have other needs, but this isn't one where I'm like, this isn't like the Travis Etienne conversation that we were having 3 years ago for the Bills.
When you were just ready for the
or
next
the Brees
CJ
Hall
Spiller.
conversation last year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I'm much more open to it.
If I were Buffalo and Bijan was there, I would draft him. I get you have to fill needs. Like you have a couple needs to fill. You got a linebacker hole to fill. You have a wide receiver 2 hole to fill. So like I get it. But I still think Bijan's exponentially better. He's an exponentially better player than whatever linebacker you would reach for in 27 to draft for need, or whatever wide receiver would be the best wide receiver available. Cincinnati 28.
Really just depends on this Joe Mixon stuff.
We need a tackle.
We do.
Desperately.
We do, but we also do have Jackson Carman. Hey, he played better at the end of last season. Keem Adeneji's had a lot of reps.
You have the ignorance to piss on us and call it rain. Let's go. Come on. Cincinnati would be the quintessential team for me. That I'm drafting the tackle because I need a tackle. It sounds like they're moving on from Lyle Collins. So I would draft the right tackle, and then I would draft the running back on day 2. And I think for them, with some of the contracts that they have in need of renewing over the next couple of seasons, kind of like you're facing a potential little bit of a paradigm shift and transition for that organization in the next 2 years, you got to maximize it and make it count. Like you talk about the rookie quarterback contract window and all that, and Joe Burrow, they got to make it count. So I would draft the tackle, address the need, and then I would draft a running back if I need to replace Joe Mixon on day 2. Sit here, invoke the names Jackson Carman and Akeem Adeniji.
Second round pick from like 2 years ago. Played better in year 2. I mean, what is the tackle you're going to get here?
Is Darnell Wright going to be here?
Maybe. Not according to some people, man.
Fine, go get Darnell Wright.
So you have such a concern at right tackle. Like you still have Jonah Williams. You haven't traded him yet.
Take the picture you're getting for Jonah Williams and add him to 28 to go up and get Darnell Wright.
I just can't believe you don't have a little bit more of an appetite here if you're not going to bring back
for Jackson Carman.
No, for Bijan.
Of course, it would be a great fit in the offense.
Right.
But they have some nuclear holes that need to be addressed.
They couldn't. I mean, their run game was an issue last year.
Correct. Some of that was the line. Some of that was Mixon himself. Save the money. Get cheaper. Draft one on day 2. Get another quality offensive tackle in here. New Orleans Saints at 29.
I've seen this a little bit lately. They just got Jamal Williams, Alvin Kamara, Eno Benjamin. That's their backfield.
Right. We're kind of anticipating Kamara maybe getting closer to the end of his tenure with the Saints, I suppose. But
how do you put yourself in the best position to maximize this Derek Carr run that you're in with obviously salary cap issues, not a lot of depth, a good starting lineup? Is Bijan Robinson that guy? I don't know. If no. Jamal can cut into that workload and you can, keep Kamara healthy and available for you. You have Eno Benjamin, who's like a decent third running back. I don't know if I can say emphatically that this is the best way to maximize the window with Derek Carr.
I feel like the Saints don't have the depth to take I won't call it a luxury pick, but you're already paying a big contract at running back, and you just brought in a very serviceable player in Jamal Williams. And
they're not picking 29 because they earned pick 29. Let's not forget. Right.
They earned pick 10.
Right. They earned pick 10.
Okay. Philadelphia Eagles again at 30. Yeah, he's there. It's yes. Kansas City 31.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's the same thing with Cincinnati. Talk to me about their tackle situation. Lucas Nang is going to stop me. That's your Jackson Carman piece in this conversation.
I'd rather have Lucas Nang than Jackson Carman.
Sure, but at least Carman's been healthy. Nang hasn't been healthy in 3 years.
It doesn't matter. This is going to be Matthew Bergeron anyway, but
but come on. Come on, right here. This is the Bengals conversation all over again. Except for maybe you convince me that Isaiah Pacheco is like a more interesting running back to already have in the fray.
I'll entertain you with this. Okay, we're gonna go left to right. Who's a better offensive lineman, Jawan Taylor or Orlando Brown Jr.?
Let me just say this about Jawan Taylor: the guy's never played left tackle, and they're planning on playing him.
Do you want to call him a right tackle for the sake of the conversation?
No, he's their left tackle. I think Orlando Brown's better at left tackle.
Okay. By the way, once upon a time, Orlando Brown Jr. had never played left tackle either.
All right, we'll see how it goes.
Who's a better player, Joe Thuney or Cordell Volson?
Thuney.
Who's a better player, Creed Humphrey?
Humphrey.
Or Ted Karras? Who's a better player, Trey Smith or Alex Kappa?
Trey Smith.
Okay. So you just went the entire interior trio and gave the edge to the Chiefs, and we acknowledge...
Because they have the best interior trio in the league.
Correct. You don't need to have 5 All-Pros on your offensive line. The Bengals
that's a
have
big difference between
the Bengals have a second-year player at guard who is good. Karras, Kappa, and Williams, currently on the right side of the line, needs to get better. I don't even think Jonah Williams is a tackle. And we got yelled at by all the YouTube comments when we did the video on Jonah Williams. And we get it, well, if he wouldn't play guard, he wouldn't be getting traded. Because you need to get better. I get it. And by the way, part of the crux of the argument was the Bengals still had a quarterback on the rookie deal. Chiefs don't have that. It's different. It's different. It's different.
So wait. What's our conclusion here?
I would not be mad at them for doing it. I would be more inclined to do it if I were Kansas City than I would if I were Cincinnati.
I put them in the same bucket.
Okay. Well, let's put us in the bucket of getting out of here. It's going to do it for us today on the show. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. Appreciate you guys checking out Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, show dedicated to team building across the NFL. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We hope to talk to you all again tomorrow, so hit subscribe. Come on back and see us again soon. Peace.